It seems like it's been about 3 weeks since I rode the bike. We were in Charleston for a week for the Volvo Open tennis tournament. And then as soon as we got back, we left for France. Non-stop flight from Raleigh-Durham to Paris. 2 days in Paris. Got to see a number of things, including Notre-Dame, exactly 1 week before the fire. Got some pictures of the rose windows and the front facade and the tower. So sad. Well, I understand they've raised $1 billion at this point, largely from private donations, to rebuild it. And they're talking 5 years maybe, although a lot of people say it'll take 10. I hadn't really understood how much wood was involved in the inside of Notre-Dame. They call it the forest because I think it took they cleared about 50-something acres of forest to produce the timbers for that scaffold structure that holds up the roof and everything. Earliest trees were cut in 1170, I think, somewhere in there. It's just amazing to think about that. As I understand it, they didn't even have a sprinkler system. You really sort of have to wonder what thoughts going through people's heads not to involve themselves with any kind of protection. So after Paris, we left on the Viking Rolf, one of their river cruisers, and the first stop was in Vernon. And that point of stopping there was really to see Giverny and Monet's gardens. And I tell you, I almost get tears in my eyes when I see Monet's paintings of the water lilies. And he created these gardens with the water to study the reflections and to do those lilies, among other things. And the gardens are just spectacular, beautiful beyond description. And we were really lucky being there in early April. The tulips and all kinds of things were just at the peak. I can't imagine it would have been that pretty even a week later. So we hit it just right. The next overnight stop was in Roen, and that's where the huge cathedral that used to greet people who were traveling to France and by sea and landed at one of the ports on the channel. I think Roen was kind of a typical stop, and the cathedral was just awe-inspiring to everybody that saw it. Of course, Rouen is also where Joan of Arc was burned at the stake. And they've actually constructed a new and very modern church with a very unusual architecture to commemorate St. Joan now. And it actually is The church itself is maybe 50 feet from the site of the burning. And it's, of course, memorialized with a huge cross made of concrete. Boy, anybody that thinks politics being toxic is a new phenomenon doesn't know much about history. Oh, I love the new suspension. It used to be a teeth-jarring experience to go through there. After spending a day and a night poking around in Roen, the next morning the buses loaded up everybody to go to Normandy. Some of the group wanted to visit the British beaches, Gold, Sword, and Juno, British and Canadian. And the majority wanted to visit the American beach at Omaha. I didn't know exactly what to expect. And this was the only thing that was a little disappointing about the tour guide was not very knowledgeable, and the bus stopped at Gold Beach at a so-called museum, but it was really like a curio shop, and they had some old weapons there, World War II vintage, and they showed a little short video of the construction and deployment of the mulberries, the artificial harbors that Churchill dreamed up and that were used to offload material during the early stages of the invasion. But there was a much better museum at Caen, and we didn't see that. And then we stopped at the American Cemetery above Omaha Beach, and that was a very moving experience. We spent a good bit of time walking around in there, but again, there was not much in the way of tour guide exposition. And then back on the buses and down to Omaha, the beach itself. We never saw Punta Hoke, never saw Utah Beach, never saw St. Mary-Église or any of the towns that, if you've studied Normandy D-Day, are very familiar names. Didn't get to see any of that, really. The surprising thing for me was that Omaha Beach seemed enormous. You could not see from one end to the other. Just a huge area. There's a very beautiful memorial there. And it is, of course, a very chilling thing to just walk along that beach and think about what happened, I guess, 70 years ago, 75 years ago.